Thank you all so much for being here today. Thank you for joining us. We're very excited to have you here for this presentation called Beyond Smell, Finding Pleasure, Identity, and Ritual in Food and Fragrance. My name is Katie Boateng, and I'm here on the behalf of the Smell and Taste Association of North America, or STANA. We're so grateful to be co-hosting today's conversation with the World Taste and Smell Association. This partnership feels especially meaningful because flavor and fragrance are often talked about separately, but for people living with anosmia or other forms of smell dysfunction, they are deeply connected. Smell shapes how we experience food, memory, identity, beauty, comfort, ritual, and even connection. When smell changes or disappears, it can affect both how we eat and how we relate to the world around us. So today's presentation is an opportunity to bring those conversations together. Rather than focusing only on anosmia as a loss, we also want to explore it as a different way of engaging with the senses. So that does not mean minimizing the grief, the frustration, or the real challenges that can come with smell dysfunction. I myself have acquired anosmia for 17 years now, so I do understand. Those experiences are valid. But we also want to make space for creativity, adaptation, and new rituals. So during today's session, you'll hear about ways to appreciate food through taste, texture, temperature, visual cues, and even trigeminal sensations like cooling, heat, and tingling. We'll also explore how fragrance can still play a role in identity, routine, memory, and self-expression, even when smell is changed or absent. So our hope is that you leave today with practical ideas, a sense of validation, and maybe a new way of thinking about pleasure and sensory experiences beyond smell. So we'll go ahead and get started. So some meeting ground rules for everyone, so we're on the same page. Please do keep your mic on mute unless you're called upon to speak later on. Use the raise hand feature, and the moderators will call on you when there's a break for questions and answers. Please absolutely feel free to use the chat box, and we may call on you to verbalize your thoughts if you're comfortable with that. And if you're here as iPhone, if you wouldn't mind changing your name so that we know who you are, that would be wonderful. So a little bit about all of you. I'm kind of a data geek, and I wanted to kind of have an idea of who's here. And when we looked at who had registered as of Thursday, this is a chart of what people chose when we asked the question, what best describes your connection to this topic? And I'm excited that people who have some type of sensory dysfunction were the majority. So at the time that we took these stats, there were 48 people registered, or about 41% who is a person living with sensory dysfunction. Researchers came in second, around 20% or 24 people who registered, and then fragrance industry professionals at 17 people or 14%. And there are a couple of other categories here. So I just thought that was kind of fun. And then we're heavily United States focused. So at the time that we took these numbers, about 73 people were from the US. We also have people from Canada, the UK, Ireland, India, and other areas. So even a couple of people from Australia, which is kind of fun. So now I'll pass it over to Stephanie, and she'll go ahead and chat with us.
So I'm really excited about this event. I'm really excited that we're partnering with STANA on this, the World Taste and Smell Association. And today's event is Beyond Smell, Finding Pleasure, Identity, and Ritual in Food and Fragrance. And it's a presentation which is in honor of National Sense of Smell Day. National Sense of Smell Day is celebrated on the last Saturday of April. It was created in 1994 by the Sense of Smell Institute, which was part of the Fragrance Foundation. It actually no longer exists. And it was one of the main reasons behind them creating it was to realize the role that the sense of smell plays in our daily lives. That's very much part of the mission. You'll hear a little bit more about STANA's mission and the World Taste of Smell Association mission, but that's very much at the core of what we do. And the day also is created to create public awareness about different types of smell disorders related to olfaction. I'm really excited about who we have joining us today. Joshna Maharaj is the author of Take Back the Tray and a chef who also suffers from smell dysfunction. And Frauke Galia is, you may have seen her Substack, An Aromatic Life, or listened to her podcast. She's also a veteran of the fragrance industry. And you met Katie, and I am Stephanie Foyer. I'm one of the co-founders of the World Taste and Smell Association.
So, if you have heard of STANA before, that's great. If not, we are the Smell and Taste Association of North America, and our vision is a world where taste and smell are valued as essential to health, safety, and wellness. Our mission encompasses quite a lot, but overall, we seek to serve as a voice for people with smell and taste disorders, collaborate with people who are going through this, but also with like healthcare professionals, institutions, researchers. We want to advocate for funding and expansion for research on smell and taste disorders, and we want to share the patient's lived experience with everyone, all different types of stakeholders, promote effective and accessible diagnostic and treatment options, and partner with organizations around the world like World Taste and Smell Association, who are aligned with our vision to broaden our outreach. So that's a little bit about STANA.
The World Taste and Smell Association is a 501(c)(3) nonprofit alliance of researchers, clinicians, advocates, innovators, and industry partners. We work to celebrate the value of taste and smell in our lives, and we support individuals who are suffering from taste and smell disorders. We promote innovation in science and efforts to advance the real-world impact of taste and smell. We're the founders of World Taste and Smell Day, which is celebrated on September 14th each year. And this year, we're launching a clinical trial on retronasal perception and flavor training. And WTSA hosts a space sensory lab, and we create events like these. You could find us and a wealth of information about taste and smell on www.tasteandsmell.org. So we have something tremendously special today. We are doing a live cooking demo. Not we, Joshna Maharaj, who is a chef. She's a speaker. She's an activist. She believes really strongly in the power of chefs and social gastronomy to bring the values of hospitality, sustainability, and social justice to the table. Her first book, Take Back the Tray, captures the lessons and experience from her work in creating a movement to reconnect food with health, wellness, education, and rehabilitation in public institutions. With 15 years of experience in TV, radio, and culinary and university instruction, Joshna is an engaging teacher, which you'll soon find out. And her work has included kitchens, gardens, dining tables, all part of the classroom. She's an award-winning two-time TEDx speaker and just completed her master's in gastronomy at TU Dublin in Ireland. I think you all know that flavor is really complex. A lot of it has to do with smell, but also our taste buds, sweet, salty, bitter, umami are part of it. But so much is more than just smell and more than just taste buds. It's mouthfeel, it's trigeminal stimulation, mint, the engagement of all other senses. And now Joshua is going to bring that to us from her kitchen.
All right, let's get going. Hello, 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 everybody. Hello from a wonderfully sunny morning in Toronto, or we just hit afternoon. I'm so delighted to be here with all of you. And because I have a short amount of time, I'm going to jump into some cooking and then we're going to do some chatting while things work their way on the stove. But as you heard, I am a chef, and I have been a nosmic for just over 10 years now. And it has been obviously a major deal being a chef, living with this. But one of the things that has been so interesting is to see the way my other senses start to compensate and to take over and to rise and make themselves known. And so one of the things I thought I would do with us, whoops, today, little antics for the camera, is do a little caramelized onions. I love caramelized onions, and I feel like they fit in my anosmic eating really beautifully for a number of reasons, which we're going to go through. So right now, I have a pan on medium heat, and I'm adding both. I have canola oil, and you could use olive oil, and I have butter. because butter tastes delicious, but it has a low smoking point and things can start to burn. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to melt some butter and some oil in this pan. And this is the time to be generous with the fat. Caramelizing. The process of caramelizing is about slowly coaxing the sugars out of sweet things like onions. And so you want to give it low and slow, and you want to give it lots of fat to kind of swim around in, because one of the first lessons that we get in culinary school is that fat carries flavor. And so here we go. And I like to start caramelized onions high. So what I'm doing right now is I'm just going to add, I've got red and white onions just for kicks. It's what I had around. But you see, it's a generous amount that will, over the course of the next 15, 20 minutes, shrink down. I'm going to season generously with salt because salt helps to pull some of that liquid out. And then the other important thing to do is just toss things around so that everything gets a bit coated by the fat and salt seasoning that we have. So that is going to roll around and do its thing. And I will intermittently just come and give it a toss. And already, even just by using two different colors of onions, I feel like we have a little visual excitement happening in this pan. Okay, and one cue for me is when you see all of the onion slices a bit glossy, that's how you know that they're coated in the fat. And I've been a bit adventurous here with how much I filled, but I think we're going to be all right. Okay, so now I'm going to go through my story. I have post-surgery chronic rhinosinusitis. And for as long as I can remember, allergies and sneezing and stuffed nose and sinus infections has just been the story for me. But it was only when, and I knew that I couldn't smell. And as a cook, I was keeping this desperately a secret. I was convinced that I would lose all my professional credibility if anybody learned that I was a chef who couldn't smell, because that would suggest that I'm also a chef who can't taste and who wants to eat that person's food. And so I was really protective of this secret, which is super tricky because people are constantly offering me things to smell, particularly in my line of work. We're at a winery. Oh my God, wine tasting became the most torturous thing that I would just lie my way through because I didn't want anybody to know my secret, right? And then I went on vacation with my family. We were in Split, a wonderful city in Croatia, for Christmas time. And I watched my brother, my sister-in-law, and my mom chase delicious smells throughout this beautiful old city. My mom was roasted chestnuts, and my brother found some like pork loin something, and my sister-in-law had, she mentioned some beautiful baking bread. And I literally, and they all like ran off to go and deliver the things they were smelling. And I was standing there by myself, just being like, ah, I don't get to know this place the same way they did, right? That really hit me. And I was like, they are getting a connection to this place that I'm not going to have. And then my head started spinning with all of the things that were happening around me that I knew nothing about. And my very wonderful sister-in-law caught this. She understood that I was feeling a bit isolated and disconnected. So she super sweetly became my sort of accessibility tool for the rest of the week. And everywhere we went together, she would quietly whisper to me what she was smelling. Right? She was like my little human accommodation. And so we'd walk around and she'd say, some bread just came out of the oven there, or that smells really briny and pickly, or even like someone smoking a joint in that corner, or I think maybe somebody peed over here. Like she would really, so that I got a sense of this place. And that kickstarted something for me. And I came home and did some research and discovered such a thing as smell training, as that anosmia was a real thing that people were talking about. Curiously, this all happened in January, February of 2020, which was sort of amazing because once COVID hit, just before that, I decided to come out and confess the fact that I'm a chef who can't smell, but that I'd found smell training, and I took little photos of my jars with all of my hopeful excitement about what this could lead to. But the novelty of a chef who can't smell was I had no idea. I had no idea. Media to this day is still interested. I still get interview requests. The BBC called, like it was just hilarious. And then people thought that there was some connection to my coming out about anosmia and the fact that now anosmia was a real thing because of COVID and what was happening with COVID. Obviously not connected at all. But so now we're in this process where I'm out and I'm talking about it, and I have to see there are real implications for my life in the kitchen. Thankfully, I have understood it such that my intuition as a cook is strong, because one of the physical bits of evidence of my anosmia in my food would be over seasoning. Right. And so far, that is not part of the story, which I'm really grateful for. So smell is gone. Taste is muted. I don't catch those back olfactory bits. And so that sort of adjusts things too. So what I'm going to do is, while these gorgeous, okay, here we go. Just pause on this conversation for a second. And you can see that the onions have become what I like to call a bit lazier, right? They're a bit softer. They're moving around with a little more smoothness in the pan, not as much flying out as the raw ones did. So we're going to keep this going. This is like medium heat. You don't want to go higher than this, because you'll essentially end up sauteing and browning the outsides, as opposed to the coaxing of sweetness that we're trying to do here. So one of the things I was trying to think about the best way to describe my kitchen experience to you. And I think that there are probably two big pockets to talk about in terms of what this means for me in the kitchen. The first one is what I call alternative sensory cues, right? And these are things that I do now, because so many recipes, I find now that I'm in this situation, so many recipes have nasal or smell based cues. Taste until toasty, taste until fragrant, which just means until you can smell it, right? Which is the cue that we use for whole spices. Right. So this is, I'll show you, I show you my little hack. Coming from an Indian home and an Indian culture, toasting and grinding spices is a thing that we do a lot in the kitchen. And so I have here, you can see underneath, these are whole spices this is a simple garam masala. And usually when we do this, I toast this over medium-low heat until you can smell it. And it's not until you can see a bit of smoke, because that's likely when things have burned and gone too far and the flavor will become bitter. You just want it to be warm. And so the other day I was practicing when I put the pan on the heat on medium-low, and then every sort of minute or so, I would put my hand on it just to see, can I still touch this? Right? Is this still? And as I could still touch it, I was like, okay, we're not there yet. We're not there yet. And once I got to the stage where I could, my hand seized away instantly, I had the logic, and I'm happy to be corrected, but this makes sense for me, that once they were too hot for me to touch, they were hot enough for their oils and flavors to be released. Right? That would be the point where fragrance would start to emit. We're at that critical state. So I could confidently take those off the heat, let them cool, and then buzz them up in the grinder. And that I've used it so far. Masalas are tasting fantastic. Curries are tasting really good. So I think that I have sort of cracked that code a little bit, which is a thing that I was really interested in terms of finding new ways to connect to what's happening on the stove with my food. Now, as you can see, these are getting translucent. If you ever have a recipe that tells you to cook onions or saute aromatics until translucent, that's where we are now. And you see, everybody's getting a little soft and lazy in this pan, which is exactly the direction we want to go in. Now, other kinds of interesting things that I have found myself doing is really paying attention to the sound. Right? I've turned the sound off just because of the nature of this web broadcast, but I have become so attuned to the sound of voluminous bubbling versus low bubbling, right? So because my nose can't tell me when things are browning, my ears start to share that information. And I know that there is a sound of lots of water versus a sound of a little bit of water. And I actually have a really interesting link that I could share with Katie to share with all of you about this piece. And then obviously one of the most clear, easy ones is visual, which is why I chose caramelized onions today. Because even regardless of my ability to smell, my cue for how good caramelizing of onions happens is always visual, right? It's always the shades. And I actually find it really helpful. What I do a few times is like take photos through the process to actually see. Generally speaking, people don't go far enough, right? They don't let caramelizing happen far enough. And so onions don't get the level of brown that they should for that maximum sticky, sweet, gorgeous flavor. And let's hope that that's where we're going to hit today. We're going to let these beauties keep going. And I'm going to tell you a little bit more about some other tricks that I have. But I have another, I'm going to put this burner on the back. I have my other stove going so that I can show you bits under the camera here. All right, Beauty, you do that. So in addition to the sensory cues piece, one of the other elements of my cooking adventure has been about texture and boldness, right? Somebody interviewed me asking me about what has changed, how has my anosmia changed? And that was the only moment where I'd really considered it. I hadn't really before, but when I had to answer that question, I was like, great question. And the truth is, there's nothing subtle about my food anymore. My food smacks you in the face with big flavors because I don't catch subtleties. Herby notes are all lost. I still use herbs, but I save them all for the end. Unless it's like rosemary or thyme, which gets sort of burrowed in a liquid braise. But all the herbs that I use are all things that I finish with. Right? Because that's my best ability to experience them is when they hit my palate first. So at least I can get some of the flavor of the intention of the use. But there's other ways to do this. I really find that chili and acid have become huge presence in my food. Chili, obviously, well, chili was sort of always there. And it shows up, our good friend here, Frank's Red Hot is something. But I have really gotten into chili oils and chili crisp. This chili crisp, you can see there's hardly any left, but it is a beloved collection of seeds and toasted garlic. So there's actually crunchy bits involved as well as the kind of burn from the chili, which I love. Sambal is another favorite. And I delight myself with having all of these different things available, right? That's how it all works. When I say, what kind of chili am I in the mood for today? And we're able to do this. My friend made me this beautiful chili oil. And this is sort of how we play that game. And I have it. There's a ritual piece. I actually have these living on a cake stand in the corner of my counter. So it's my little moment to see how I dress up my food whenever I'm plating things for myself. Another piece that I use a lot is citrus, right? Citrus and herbs and chili for me are like lip makeup and jewelry, right? They're those last little anointing bits that you add on before you head out the door or before you're ready for your day. And so a little squeeze of citrus, a dusting of herbs, a round of chili oil, or there's also these beautiful bits that I like to use. This is furikake, which is a Japanese little seasoning piece. And you can get these at any Japanese Asian grocery store. And I find there's bonito flakes, which is dried fish, seaweed, sesame seeds, toasted garlic, and there's something sweet in there too. And I find this a perfect garnish for fried eggs, little rice bowl, little chicken, anything, a salad, fantastic. Also, everybody's favorite, everything bagel. And this, for you Americans, it's the Trader Joe's version that I have here, which is my most beloved one. But I have also, this is called fine sève. And essentially what these are is little strands of chickpea flour that we use in the Indian kitchen as a garnish for chaat, which is snacks sort of smothered in yogurt and different kinds of chutneys. But it adds a beautiful crunch. So it's lovely again on a salad, on a baked potato, on some pasta with butter and garlic, like any little bit. And similarly, crispy onions are also a thing. This is the Asian kitchen really loves this. On a thing or on a bowl of ramen, on pretty much anything, it offers that beautiful crunch. Also, big flavors, pickles. These are just pickled cucumbers. As we all know, these happen to be a Lebanese or a brand that I'm making for shawarma that's planned for dinner tonight. But those are the pieces that I like to use that add dynamic interest and flavor to my dishes. I'm just going to go stir those onions. Okay.
While Joshna is stirring, I just asked a question. I'd love to hear from you all, kind of what's your favorite garnish to add texture, whether you have smell dysfunction or not. Joshna just mentioned like crispy onions. That's like a solid go-to for me. And then Chick-fil-A has like these pepitas things. I don't even know what they are, but they're really
If
good.
they're pepitas, then they're pumpkin seeds.
Okay, yeah, there we go. I love them. So I'd love to hear from you guys in the chat. Drop a comment. What's your favorite garnish to add texture to stuff?
The other element that I like to use, in addition to to acid, is vinegar. In addition to citrus, sorry, is vinegar. And I'm going to draw your attention to one specifically. This is a black Chinese vinegar. And I use a half part of this, half part of soy sauce, some chili oil, and scallions as my dumpling dipping sauce. But the boldness of this black vinegar is amazing. It gets caught in the gutters in the side of your mouth in this beautiful way, and I really enjoy it. Another deep staple is cider vinegar. This is a local one from here in Ontario. And then balsamic vinegar, which is what I'm going to add to our caramelized onions when they're done to make them into a bit of a jam or chutney. You need a bit of bright acid in there just to balance out that sweetness. Other pieces to pull to your attention are umami. I go serious with umami and savory flavors now. And for me, the way that shows up is fish sauce. I love fish sauce. One trip to Bangkok and I started using fish sauce like soy sauce. And if you know what I mean, it's free. And the thing I love about fish sauce is it really fills the open space in your mouth, right? And there's nothing subtle about fish sauce. It is there. It is there to taste. And I perhaps consume more of it than the average person, but for me, it works and it livens up my dishes. Similarly, our old friend Lee and Perrin's Worcestershire sauce has a similar umami vibe and very clearly similar roots with fish and seafood bases like fish sauce does. And so the last things I'm going to introduce here are this is a wild mushroom powder, and this is mushrooms foraged from forests here in Canada. There's a wonderful company, Forbes Wild Foods, that does this, and it's essentially just dried mushrooms that I have ground down to a powder. And I'm also going to add these into the caramelized onions, and that is going to boost the umami flavor. And the cool thing is this, with a bit of that vinegar, we are moments away. We just need a bit of mayo, cream cheese for the best onion dip of your life. Right? So this wild mushroom powder is a thing that I use a lot. And then I have also really made friends with anchovies. I love anchovies. They get a bad rap. I was just in Spain and fell deeply in love with anchovies. I know they're kind of when they're good, they are more than just a smack in the face salt bomb. When they are good, they are rich and they kind of melt into the fat if you chop them finely, and I find them glorious. And so even adding them to a salad dressing helps to boost the dressing, and then it increases more play between what the dressing and the lettuce or the greens that I'm using have to say. And to me, that's fun and exciting. One of the things that I have really committed to, because as a chef who cannot smell and has limited taste, is the joy in eating cannot diminish. And so I have really worked, in addition to, I'm sure those of you who are living with some sort of smell dysfunction, my deep allegiance to notes and timers, right? Because I can't trust, I have double timers sometimes. I have post-it notes literally all over the walls in this place. with reminders about things that my nose will not remember, will not help me through. But that is a story. I feel like we're still a little bit ways away, but maybe for 30 seconds right at the end, we can tune back in and I can finish up those caramelized onions. But I'm so interested in moving along. Although, Katie, you tell me, how are we doing for time?
I think we're great. If you want to, you said the onions are not quite ready.
They're not quite ready yet. They need a little, and as I was going on about how they have to be slowly coaxed.
Yeah, I think we're good on time for now, but we have so many amazing comments about what people are adding for their garnishes and things like that. So,
Okay, that's very exciting.
yeah,
Maybe if we could move forward, and I'll take a pause from the group now, but then revisit for another minute or so after
absolutely.
Rebecca's
Yeah.
talk, and then I can have more impressive onions to show you all.
Perfect. So we'll go ahead
Okay.
and transition. Hopefully everyone was able to see both Joshna herself and then the camera view. Let me go ahead and unpin the camera for now. And we'll unpin Joshna for now. Let me share my screen and get back over here. So perfect. That was so exciting. And I do a lot of the things that you were talking about, Joshna, without even realizing that I do them.
Oh,
So
that's
that's kind of
amazing.
cool. And so we'll come back to Joshna, but I want to transition over and have Frauke Gallia speak with us. So Frauke is an author, a smell coach. She's coached me before, which was kind of fun, an aromatherapist, and a podcaster who has over 20 years of experience in and around the fragrance industry. She's known as the Smell Lady, and she has a deep passion for connecting people with their sense of smell and a firm belief that society undervalues this beautiful, critical sense. And I can tell you that she is very passionate about smell. She's one of my favorite people for that
Mm.
reason. I love following her Instagram because every year around Anosmia Awareness Day, she challenges both herself and her friends to describe smells without using smell words, which is really challenging. So she's definitely going to be speaking to us today about these different types of things. Her podcast, it's called An Aromatic Life. It explores the sense of smell and works to elevate its profile in a culture that's dominated by sight and sound. She also has this Substack of the same name, An Aromatic Life, and she co-authored a children's book called No Place for Plants. She just did a Earth Day webinar, which was great. Creator of the Scent Tattoo Project, which connects people through scent memories. And when she's not working on all of those things, you can find her out and about smelling everything. So, Frauke, I'm going to let me know when to go to the next slide, and I'm going to pin you for everyone. So just let me know when you're ready.
I'm ready. I don't know how to follow Joshna's amazing presentation. I mean, awesome. So I'll do my best. We'll switch into fragrance. And I just want to thank you for having me here today. If you go to the next slide, Katie. So most people assume that if you can't smell, fragrance has nothing to offer you. So I want to spend the next few minutes suggesting that perhaps that's not true and you can integrate fragrance into your daily routine. So next slide. So I thought I'd begin with a personal story about fragrance. And I want to tell you about my first fragrance. And some of you may know this scent. It was Anais by Cacharel. Just dates me a little bit. That's how old I am now. But it was launched in 1978, but I began wearing it as a teenager in the 80s. And it was the most popular teen fragrance of the time, I think, because I've talked to enough people now around the world who also said they wore Anais. And I suppose, like most teenagers in those days, I put some pictures of myself, as cringy as they may be. I wore it because I was simply trying to fit in. I think everybody was wearing it, all the girls were. And as you can see from the pictures, I was more of a sporty type. I wasn't a girly girl. And I was a little bit shy, had a small group of friends. I'd spend the weekends at the mall as you did back then. Went to the movies and all that stuff. I played basketball. Pretty typical, I would say. But this fragrance was my signature scent. I wore it every day. And as you can see in the advertising, I put that up there just to kind of show you what imagery and what the brand was trying to really convey. And it was marketed as very hyper feminine and romantic, the pastel colors, very soft and pinkish visuals. Even the bottle was small, very cute, very round. I actually have it here because I've always been interested in having this with me to just reminisce about the past. And the scent itself reflected all this advertising as well. It was very flowery, the texture of powder, it's very warm and sweet. It's really innocent, really, which is, I don't know if that's the image I was trying to convey, but it really tried to give you that, innocent, hyper feminine impression. So if you go to the next thing. So taking that, the reason I bring that up is because I want you to reflect for a moment. So I want you to take a moment to think about your first fragrance, if you can remember it, or if it's not your first, a favorite fragrance that you remember wearing if you've lost your sense of smell. If that's hard, if you're congenital, then think about somebody in your life who had fragrance on their dresser, maybe it was a parent or a grandparent, a best friend. And if you're open to it, share in the chat. Love to hear what kind of fragrances you remember wearing. Now I want you to think about, if you have one in mind, think about who you were back then when you were wearing it, or who you were trying to be, for that matter. For me, I was trying to be more feminine because I was so sporty. And think about how the thought of that fragrance makes you feel today. Do you still have a connection with it? Because it's not really about the smell. It's about where you were, who you were at that time in your life, right? Because most people can't remember the smell that well unless you happen to come across it. So even for those of us who can smell. And I want you to think about this as we continue on here. All right, so the next fragrance. I want to begin first by doing something simple and defining fragrance. So we tend to believe that it's all about the juice in the bottle. And I'll begin there because that's what most people think about. They think fragrance, oh, the smell of it. The juice itself, it's really an invisible communication system that goes two ways, right? The scent you put on is an outward projection. And at the same time, it's a reflection of how others receive it. So in a way, it's a mirror. And that juice carries identity, carries memory, carries mood and meaning. Next slide. But fragrance goes well beyond that. Obviously, as I just mentioned with Anais, it's all the marketing around it. It's all the messages that you're receiving beyond that juice in the bottle. It's actually the bottle itself. It's the packaging, right? It's the advertising that's being conveyed. Even the place where it's sold. Is it kind of an upscale, high-end place? Is it on social media? Wherever it may be, that's all sending messages about what that fragrance is. And it's also really important to think about what story is being told. The world you're stepping into when you wear this fragrance. What are they trying to make you feel about this fragrance? Mind you, you haven't even smelled anything yet. You're getting all these messages before anything is put on skin. So even if it's just the bottle shape and the color of the liquid, there are messages being conveyed. Okay, the next slide. I did want to share an interesting trend, which I've noticed. I have children boys in their 20s, early 20s, and I've been noticing this, and also within the fragrance community that I'm still connected to, a huge thing that's happening right now is TikTok. I mean, social media in general, but especially TikTok is huge for the fragrance industry, and it's being led by Gen Z. So Facebook and YouTube and Instagram, they're also incredibly strong, but specifically TikTok is really taking off. There's a TikTok perfume shop even. It says, you see hashtag, what does it say? Hashtag fragrance talk is the hashtag. I'm not even on TikTok, but I know enough about it just from my boys. And I think what's really interesting there is that there's hundreds of influencers. There's these just young people who are just talking so much about fragrance. It's actually leading the growth in the industry a little bit because there's peer reviews. There's, just them talking about this great scent. Mind you, nobody is smelling anything. They're just talking about it. So the peer reviews, the packaging aesthetics, and all that online storytelling has been with the new fragrance counter. So people aren't using their nose in the fragrance purchase decision at all. We have to remember that. And I think that's really reassuring. So I also wanted to talk about, why do we wear fragrance? So there's lots of reasons. It's to create identity and self-expression first and foremost, right? You put something on and you're expressing something, even though it's invisible. And you're communicating to people something about who you are or who you want to be. When we wear fragrance, we're making a statement, albeit an invisible one. It's similar to kind of choosing the clothes you're going to wear for the day or the hairstyle you have. And the fragrance becomes part of the story you tell about yourself to others. And we reach for fragrance that feels like us, and that choice is the expression. But we can also wear it for memory, to evoke a place, a person, a time in our life that we want to carry with us. Wearing fragrance can also be comforting. Sometimes we wear the same fragrance every day, like I did, until it becomes part of us. It becomes part of our own identity. And that anchoring is a form of security. It's a source of comfort. The act of putting on the fragrance becomes kind of a ritual because you're doing it every day. And that becomes associated with our own sense of self. And that in itself is comforting, just to put it on. We also wear fragrance to fit a mood. Maybe we want something that lifts us up, or we want to feel sexy, or we want to feel confident at work. Then there's social signaling and aspiration. So choosing to wear a particular fragrance, something trendy, maybe a niche brand, is a way to show status, even just that bottle. Sometimes we choose a fragrance because of how it's been sold to us, the image from the advertising or the influencer. Lots of influencers. Wearing a particular scent can feel like stepping into a version of ourselves we aspire to be. And of course, the classic reason for attraction, that's the one that's sold to us most, right? We want to be alluring to a potential mate. So what remains when you can't smell? Well, in a nutshell, what I'm here to tell you is that a lot of it remains. I would say the only clearly obvious one is perhaps the mood one, since you're applying it based on what you're smelling. So if we go to the next slide. So fragrance is really great for creating an identity and for self-expression. You can still reach for something that feels like you in the name, in the story that's being told, a bottle that speaks to you. That act of choosing is the expression whether you can smell it or not. The choice still communicates, the statement is still made, the story is still told. And the same is when you're choosing based on memories. Beyond scent, the memory still lives in the bottle and story itself. So wearing your mother's perfume doesn't really require smell to carry weight, right? The memories already formed around a fragrance brand still exist. So they may not be triggered by smell anymore, but consciously choosing to wear what a parent wore or what you wore at a significant moment still carries that emotional weight. There's also the comfort in the daily ritual of applying the same fragrance, the gesture, the bottle, the routine. And I'll get into that in a minute a little bit more. You can also still do social, you can also still do social signaling. Others still smell you. And we'll talk about, I know there's a lot of nervousness around that when people smell you and you can't smell it yourself. And I will talk about that. But the scent still communicates something socially. You can also wear something aspirational. So the image, the story, the version of yourself you're stepping into. None of that is up here in the nose. The fantasy is available regardless. Attraction is also still available. Others still smell you. The deliberate choice for a date still sends the message. And I guess the bottom line is that you're still speaking, if you will. You're still communicating. You're just not hearing your own voice. Okay. So there's a little bit of, so if you go to the next slide now, Katie. So here's the mindset shift that I want you to consider here today, okay? So I don't know if you've heard of Ma. I love Japan. I have an affinity to all Japanese things. And there's something called Ma. It's a aesthetic philosophy that means space or gap. And importantly, it's not emptiness. It's not absence. It's space that's active, that holds meaning, that allows the other things to become visible. So the kanji character, which is underneath it, is a combination of the kanji gate and sun, which I think is really beautiful. So it depicts light shining through a doorway. And it symbolizes an interval where something exists within an opening. So the space where smell used to be isn't a hole in your sensory life. It's really a clearing. And in that clearing, the other layers of what fragrance has always meant, so identity, memory, ritual, connection, all that comes into focus in a way that hardly does for people like me who can smell. We're actually really distracted by the smell. And I think it's an opportunity for those who can't smell to really bring the other elements into focus more. All right, next. So I guess what I'm saying is an anosmia doesn't end your relationship with fragrance. It changes what you notice about it. Okay, so let's talk about what that means. The great thing is that you can use it to build and enhance identity. You can use it as another form of self-expression. So you can choose a fragrance like you choose what you wear. And you can let the fragrance accentuate who you are or who you want to be, whether it's that day or for a longer period of time. It's the same as wearing a scarf, a hat, a hairstyle, again, as I mentioned. Maybe you want to vary your expression, or maybe you decide you want to have a signature scent that you'll wear every single day, a scent that when people smell you, they know it's you. It's part of your identity. Okay, next slide. The beautiful thing is that one of the few things that I'm happy about is that AI is offering things like this. I mean, there's a lot of bad things about AI, but this is one of the good things. So there are a lot of online sites now that help you to choose how you want to express yourself in scent. And I think I found at least 6 or 7, if not 8, and I just chose 3 here today to share with you because I think they're the ones that talk the least about the smell itself, but more about who you are, your personality, how you want to express yourself. So I think these 3, scentseeker.com, scento.com, and fragrancematching.com are quite interesting. So I invite you to check those out and see if any of them make sense for you. But they're pretty good at just having you think, okay, today I'm going out at night. I want to have this particular personality tonight, or I want to find a scent that's really me every single day. So check that out and see if it makes sense for you. Okay. And another way to go about choosing a fragrance is to connect it with your own personal history. And I think this one's really interesting. Maybe there's a fragrance you wore before you lost your sense of smell that you still connect with on an emotional level somewhere because it reminds you of who you were before. Now, granted, you've changed over time, right? And now that you've lost your sense of smell, it may not be something you want to connect with, or maybe you're congenital and you've never had a fragrance in your life, but maybe it's tied to a person or a time that you still want to carry with you. So it's not about remembering what the smell is. It's about connecting with a time and a place that meant something to you. And this is a wonderful way to bring continuity into your life, a way to say to yourself, this is still who I am. The bottle alone can represent the anchor. And just having it around and making it a part of your daily ritual, which I'll talk about in a minute, can be really comforting in a way. So if you go to the next slide, I did this one for Katie because I interviewed Katie for my scent tattoo project. She's smiling. Summerhill, Crabtree, and Evelyn. You wore that, right, Katie, before? And I went to Fragrantica, which is another website you can go to. And you can put a fragrance in, any old fragrance, anything that you can think of from the past. And it gives you this, there's so much information here. I couldn't go through all of it, but it gives you a chance to kind of say, oh, okay, they use a lot of fragrance speak, like white floral, fresh, I don't know. A lot of it probably isn't very useful to you. And I'll talk about what we can do about that in a minute. But it's a chance to kind of see what else is being recommended. If you don't want to smell like the 17-year-old self that you used to be when you wore it, they give recommendations on some more modern fragrances that have similar profiles. So I think that's really interesting to see if you want to modernize it to the time that you are today. That could be an interesting way to go. So just check that out, see where it leads you. There's a lot of stuff on there. It can get a little overwhelming. So if you have a fragrance in mind already, that can sometimes be very helpful. Okay.
Rocco, not to interrupt you, but at the bottom it has your anais on there. Did you see
Oh,
that?
I know. Isn't that weird?
That's
And it
kind of
is
cool.
like you and I are connected. See, we
Yeah,
are so
very
good.
cool.
I love it. Now, here's what I want to get to because I knew this was going to come up. I feel like the whole screen is shouting at me, going, "But how can I trust what I choose?" Right? I know that feeling. I've my friend Katie told me, like, I don't know what to choose. I can't smell. And there's a reason I was focusing on you first, is because we've been talking about self-expression, identity, and pulling from memory. And that all has to come from you yourself, right? But if you don't trust yourself to make a decision because you can't smell, maybe you believe you'll choose the wrong scent. And I want to talk about this trust. I want you to trust to make the right choice for you first. And then I want you to verify. It's that old saying, trust and verify, right? So who do we trust to help us? Well, we probably trust our partner, a family member, maybe a close friend, a best friend, somebody around you who can smell, who can help verify what you want to smell like. So there is a little bit of a partnership involved here, and I want you to lean into that. I want you to decide for yourself kind of who you want to be, what you want to wear, and then work with a person who can smell, and ideally go to Sephora, whatever perfume shop is near you. Buying a whole bottle online, I don't recommend that at all. It's a waste of time for anybody. Even when I smell, if I haven't smelled it yet, I'm not going to buy it. So I don't know how all these TikTok people are buying things without having smelled it before. I find that fascinating in itself. So I want you to lean into the person who can smell. And I want them to, when you're at the store, wherever you are, I want them to spray it, not on one of those, these favorite little, here I have one, these little scent strips that they offer you all the time at the store. You don't do it on that. I want them to put it on your skin because it's going to live on your skin, and fragrance lives differently on every person's skin. So to verify, I want you to just put like a little dab on it and walk away and let it live on the skin. Maybe go to another store, walk down the street, just let it live for a minute and let that person who can smell give you feedback. Because it's not the initial spray, it's how it lives over time. Okay.
Yep.
Now, if you go to the next slide, I want to talk about quantity versus quality, because that's also really important. So scent perception is deeply personal and highly subjective. I don't care if you can smell or not. There's no universally wrong fragrance. So I want that to be reassuring to you. There's no scent that somebody's wearing that's going, oh my gosh, this is the worst smell. One person finds something really great and the other person finds it offensive. And that's the case for any and all people. So the choice, as far as I'm concerned, is rarely the problem. What I want you to pay attention to is the quantity. So how much is being applied? And all you smellers out there, same for you, because I think a lot of people, with or without anosmia, they're applying too much. They're applying way too much. So they have this whole cloud of fragrance around them, as this lady has here. So that can be really offensive. And it's not the scent itself. It's just that you're wearing too much. And so if you're really, really nervous about that, and we're going to go through a ritual in just a second, but another option you might want to consider is natural perfume. Now, granted, natural perfume is slightly more expensive, is not as readily available, but I thought I'd just throw it out there because natural perfume, when there's only natural ingredients in there, it kind of lives closer to the skin. It's not as loud as those that are synthetic or mixed media, as they call it, synthetic and natural. So they whisper instead of shouting. And they also fade faster, which means there's less risk of overstaying your welcome in a space. So that might be another thing you want to consider. But I think really it's about the quantity that you wear, and just a little bit goes a long way. Okay. So, ritual, let's talk about that. Let's assume you've now chosen a fragrance and you trust and have verified that you've made the right choice. I want to spend some time talking about how you can make fragrance a ritual in your daily routine. So a ritual is a sort of ceremonial act, and what I love about it is that it adds a nice anchor to your life. It's something very predictable, a routine that can be very comforting. And it's also a chance to take a moment to kind of connect with yourself. And if you think about your own morning routine, you get up and you choose your clothes. Like, how am I going to wear my hair today? Am I putting on makeup maybe, or jewelry, or even a watch? What if you included fragrance as part of that whole process in the morning, right? And you made applying your scent a declaration that you're stepping into your day, or in the case of an evening, if you're having a special night out, you could make it like an evening with intention. So let's do this. I'm going to do this. If you go to the next slide, Katie, let's make this, let's perform the ritual, so to speak. And I think what's really important here is I have my bottle. Hopefully you can see it. It's Anais bottle. And I want you to start by just holding the bottle in your hand and feeling it. I want to work with all the other 4 senses that you have. So feel the texture of the bottle. In this case, this one's very smooth. And look at the graphics. And every morning it can take 2 seconds to do this. I'm doing this a little bit more slowly, but really it doesn't have to take very long. It could just be about connecting with a bottle, the colors, the graphics. And then you remove the cap and you hear a pop. And then you spray on your wrist, small amount. You can do it here. Just 1 spritz. That's it. 1 little spritz. And again, while you're spritzing, you can hear that coming onto your skin. And then you watch the liquid kind of floating down on your wrist, making contact with your skin. And then you're going to take this wet wrist and you're going to apply it, take your other dry wrist and just blend it. It's just kind of like a little ritual to just connect the two and just move it around. And then take it apart, put one behind your ears. Again, you've just done 1 spritz, and you can't smell this, but it's quite strong. It's in the room. So when people are like this and all over the place, no need for any of that. 1 spray on your wrist, just a little ritual. Go like that, like that. You can take a moment and that's it. You're just applying it very minimally. It's on your wrist. People can smell it, but you've done something for yourself. It's very much a ritual. I like that comment. Please tell this to my teenage son. I know I have boys as well. Fly a lot. This is true. If you want a tip for teenage boys is have them put it on the back of their neck. Not in the front, like not all over, or don't walk into it. Right. Just really, it's 1 spritz is plenty. All right, let's go to the next one because I know we're running out of time here.
Yeah, I just want to be cognizant of time. So maybe a couple more minutes and we'll get back to Joshna.
Yes, I'll be very fast. So I guess everything we've just talked about, identity, self-expression, memory, ritual, all of it can be applied without being able to smell is what I'm trying to say. And I think the one last topic that we wanted to talk about is the fragrance industry, and specifically what I think fragrance brands can do. So fragrance industry to me as an expression is often, the people that make the juice. And in this case, I want to talk about the brands because that's what you're buying. You're buying the brand. You're not interacting with the fragrance industry itself that's creating the juice inside. So I feel like there's a couple of things we can do. And let's go to the next slide. Lots of advertising here. But honestly, my thinking is that the fragrance brands are actually already doing a lot right. Remember when I was talking to you about what a fragrance is? It's the liquid in the bottle and then all the marketing around it. Well, the marketing is available to everyone. The story around the brand, the image, the bottle shape, the aspirational element they're conveying visually. Most of it lives online where nobody can smell anyway. So a lot is already available to all of us, whether we can smell or not, to convey messages. The problem I see, if you go to the next slide, is obviously with the liquid inside, the scent. And for me, the descriptions that are being told online or shown online for someone who can't smell are terrible. And I was trying to, bring in some examples. If you go to the next slide, like Nordstrom's here. This is I don't know. Maybe Katie, you can speak to this, but most of these descriptions, you're getting a fragrance story, which is kind of nice, but most of it is just giving you the top, middle, and base notes. It's not very descriptive for someone who can't smell. Would you agree? I mean, is that nod if you feel that's the case? Because I feel like it's just a lot of fragrance speak, and to me, it's an opportunity. So here's another one, the next slide. I'm just trying to go a little faster. If you go to Sephora and Coco Chanel, again, it's like warm florals, florally, but black currant, and all this speak. It's just general fragrance speak. And I think the opportunity here is for the fragrance brands to bring in another layer. So if you go to the next slide, Katie, my recommendation would be not to take any of the stuff away that they've already done, but there's an opportunity to add another layer and to add more dimension to the descriptions of what the scent could be about. And as Katie mentioned, I do this a lot on my Instagram. I try to describe things using our other senses. So taste, sound, touch, sight, temperature, all of it. Kind of like what Joshna was talking about with food, right? Like if we were to start describing things using words from our other senses, we might feel more connected to that scent without. It's incredibly hard for people who can smell to do this because we haven't been kind of conditioned or taught to do it this way, because you have to close your eyes and really think about how the fragrance is moving along. There's the sweet stuff is easy, salty. Temperature is more about, and temperament is more about the personality of the fragrance itself. You have to take away all the visuals, but just what does it look like? Is it a bright fragrance or is it more a dark or moody fragrance? So if you go to the next slide so we can finish here. I tried to do this with my Anais. This is the description. What's that?
I love this. I love it. It's so helpful.
I don't know if you can relate to it more, but it's a sweet, fluffy, round, purring, snug, optimistic scent.
Yeah.
Does that help a little bit?
Yes, it does.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that's the opportunity. It's not to take away anything else that they've done. I think, if I may be so bold as to say, people are just being lazy by taking from whatever the fragrance houses, the people who made the liquid, are giving them, but really smelling it and trying to convey it through the other senses. And it's something that I'm working on, to see how I can bring this out into the world to help those of us who can smell, help describe things to those who can't, and by using other senses. And it's really an uphill battle because we're just not taught to do it that way, right? We use a lot of fruffy, oh, that smells like another smell. It's just not very helpful.
Yes.
That's the biggest challenge. So working on that, trying to see if we can get there. So really, I just want to leave you with this. I want you to remember that fragrance was never just about the nose, about the sense of smell. It's always been about who you are, who you want to be, what you want to convey to the world. And it's a story at the end of the day, right? And that story is still yours to tell, even when you can't smell. So it's an opportunity. So I leave it with that.
Praka, thank you so much. What an amazing description. And I shared in the chat. I don't know if people could see that, but I've been on the search for a fragrance, and I've been going through a couple of them. I put one on and my husband was like, ugh, no. And so obviously he's the one who's in the house that has to deal with it. So we're on the hunt. We're on the hunt for different smells. But I like the Fragrantica and the other areas that you shared that I can go and maybe find something. That would make good sense. Awesome. So Joshna, things have been cooking away in the background over there. Let me pin you to the top here and see your camera. Let Let me get back over to
I
the.
have something exciting to show you when it turns on.
Okay, hold on. Let's see here. Add pin. Can you guys see that or no? Let's see. Oh, hold on. Sorry, I'm getting there. Remove. Joshna's pinned up the top and then the camera. Okay. Can you guys see those two, Stephanie?
There's no image on the camera, it just says Joshna camera.
Yeah. Oh, sorry, that's my end.
There we go.
For some funny reason, the camera just turns itself off. Okay. Hello and welcome back. First of all, Fraka, I have to tell you, when you did your little ritual demo, I went to my bathroom to get, these are my little sample Joe Malone, because I loved Joe when I could smell. I loved her layering and all of it, right? The
Yeah.
rose and the pomegranate were my favorites. And I was known as the lady that smelled, so you know what I mean? A little floor like, and so I've grappled with this from an identity perspective. And so I went and I bought these little sample bottles at duty free, just to try it out. An old favorite, English pear and freesia, was one that I love desperately. But then there's a new one, which is sea salt and white sage, which I had never, right? And so I was back in because I loved you know what I mean? Without these little bits, it's like it wasn't finished. Right?
Yes.
And
Yes.
so and also Joe Malone lost her sense of smell.
Yes, she did. You're right.
Right? And so and I was like, somehow, when I am putting her perfume on, Joe and I are in it together.
I love that.
I'm like, if with somebody to really understand the profound change that happens to your life as
Yeah.
somebody's whole business was this. And so I have an affinity with her. Never met the lady ever, but we are together in our appreciation of smell that does not happen via our noses.
So I know you're going to get on, but
Please.
that whole thing that you just did, that's all feeling. There's so
Yes.
much feeling in that.
Yes.
And
This is
feeling is
what I've
not just
learned. Yes.
smell, it's everything else around it.
Totally.
Tap
And
into
how
that.
I feel about myself when I leave the bathroom,
Yes,
when I
yes.
walk out the door. You've really turned the light on that for me. I really
Good,
appreciate that.
good.
Thank you. Okay, friends, so welcome back. If you can see here now, we have a much darker vibe. I'll lift it up, and you can see these are now really good, sort of chocolatey brown caramelization. And so one of the things, and this is the low and slow and continuing to stir. And so a couple of things I want to show you about, and this is perhaps a little more just a cooking thing and less about specific anosmic cooking. But I think that when we get to this place, we have great flavor. We have sticky, sweet, with when we still have that kind of astringency from the allium of the onion, but this still needs to be seasoned. And so here's a few bits we're going to add. This helps. I think this is just balanced flavor, but it also helps with the bold anosmic cooking that I've been talking about. So I'm going to add some of that mushroom powder just to boost the umami. Already we've got a lot of umami in there. Black pepper, caramelized onions love black pepper. And then I have this beautiful, it's like Malden, if you know Malden, but this is actually from Newfoundland here in Canada on our East Coast. And I think this salt has much better flavor. And so I like to crush it a little to bring, it's just like the first spritz of perfume to kind of crack everything open, and then give it a stir. Now, you will see that over the course of the caramelizing, these little beauties, if you can see this, there's a bit of stuff, we call it foam, the French kitchen calls it foam, which is actually flavor on the bottom of the pan. And when you're doing something like this, you want all the flavor you can get. You don't want to lose any of it for the pan. So I'm here just to show you a quick little demo. I turned the heat up a bit from the low that the caramelizing happened on. So you got to work fast. But I've got my balsamic vinegar here, and that is going to go over. And then you just take your spatula or your wooden spoon and you just start scraping. And the acid from the vinegar, let's crank up the heat a little bit there, will start, and you will pick up all those little bits. This could happen with tomato paste. as well. And you see, it's starting to shine up. And you just a little bit of work with some heat. And now I have pulled all that delicious flavor, and you kind of move it around the pan. Maybe you need another hit of acid, but all of that delicious flavor then leaves. There we go. We're nice and clean there. It stays in. And at the end of this now, I have these beautiful caramel. I'm going to turn these off so I don't burn them while I chat. I have these beautiful caramelized onions that are good for so many things. A bit of toast over eggs, over a bit of fresh cheese with some crostini. Then you have the crunchiness of the texture of the toast with the kind of luxuriousness of the now flavor bomb that these caramelized onions are. They can be pulled out of this. What I like to do is put it in a jar and then just take some good olive oil and sort of pour it over the top to seal the top and that will last for a really long time in the fridge. Just remember, you can go in and pull what you need out. Just remember to pack it all down and maybe top up with a tiny bit of oil, olive oil, canola oil, whatever it is, so that it keeps it air sealed in your fridge. And these beautiful onions will take care of you for as long as they can last in your fridge. The last thing I want to show you is that masala. So here's the garam masala that I toasted and then I ground it up. And you can see we could even put a hit of this in the onions and spread that on a flatbread, focaccia, anything. It'll be bold, awesome, exciting flavor. Scattering a few of these caramelized eggs on a caramelized onions on a fried egg or a scramble in a burrito on a BLT. Like there's so many uses and so my kitchen now, my friends have noticed, which is funny, my kitchen is just a repository of flavor bombs, right? It's big, intense flavor that everybody knows they're going to get when they come over here for a meal. Okay, I think that is everything from me with lots of excitement. I wish I could give you all a taste of these caramelized onions now.
Joshna, what are you going to do with them?
I am going to have some friends over, and I think we're going to get serious about a party pizza. So caramelized onions, a bit of feta, and I like fresh thyme leaves. Right? Again, for sometimes it's just the aesthetic, the prettiness of it all. But I'm also going to save it up because my mom is visiting this weekend, and these are her favorite things. And I kind of knew that in the back of my mind because when she visits her chef daughter, it's all about what are the delicious things that I have made for you. So she loves this. She will just have this like on a chapati with ghee and caramelized onions and roll it up, and that'll be her little happy snack. So this is half treat for mom.
That's amazing. Thank you. Thank you so much to Joshna and to Frauke. I know someone in the chat was just asking if they can see the onions. I do have both the camera and Joshna pinned. I think you
Are they
have
too
to
dark though? Here, I can hold it up.
I think you have to
You
change
have
your
to tilt it.
view at the top right-hand corner. I was just trying to go up there to see if I
I think
can.
you also have to pin yourself, unfortunately. Like you have to do it yourself.
Okay.
Um, I've
And
noticed that
I
I
have to
can't
do
see what
this.
you pin. You have to pin the person.
Oh, gotcha. So yeah, you'll have to
Yeah.
pin
Oh, I
Joshna
see.
and then pin the camera as well. So I think
Yeah.
Lyra Butler Denham had written that for us. If you as a participant click the three dots at the top of each box, Joshna Maharaj and Joshna Camera, and you click pin for one and add pin to the other, they will show up large on your screen. So there's that. Well, let me go back over here and we can finish up our presentation. I know we're a little bit over time, but at this point, I just want to ask if anyone has any last minute questions that they'd like to ask, either Joshna or Frauke. Feel free to, like, if you know how to do the raise hand feature, or you can just type them in the chat and we can ask them to address. If no one has questions now, we did ask for questions in advance, so we can dive over to those.
I do want to
Go
say just one thing
go ahead.
about the notion of jarring those onions, because I have found in my own, both suffering from parosmia and hyposmia, and when I was anosmic, that having things at the ready took
Mm-hmm.
away some of the frustration of cooking. Because
Awesome.
if I knew that, okay, I'm going to add a little chili crisp, I'm going to add a little bit of fresh mint to something, and it was right there, I didn't have to think about it. I didn't have to
Yes.
always think about the fact that I couldn't smell it or it wasn't smelling the way I wanted it to. So
Mhm.
and I normally had joy in cooking, so it mitigated some of the negativity that was
Yes.
going along with my loss. So I think you made a really great point about, just keeping it around.
It's so true. I feel like that's a lesson this has taught me. Right, is to having the anchovies and the chili crisp and the caramelized onions and the other just bits of masala. Now I make more masala now than I ever have before. One, because the ritual of it is nice, but also fresh masala is amazing. Right? And so just to have those, my mom was giggling and laughing about what a masala maker I have become. But you are totally right. It helps to just have them at the ready. And I like I said, I have it here on a cake stand, so it all feels very special.
And Joshua, there's a question. I know that on the next slide here that we have the websites for STANA, for World Taste and Smell, and then also for Frauke. And you said that your site is under construction right now.
It
So can
is,
people connect
yes.
with you on Instagram?
Sure, it's at Joshna Maharaj. It's my whole name. No spaces or dashes, just the at sign in front. And you can find me on Instagram, and I'd be delighted to connect and chat.
Amazing. Are there any other questions in the chat? Let's check here. Lots of thank yous. So we will share the recording. It has been a recorded conversation. Once it's ready, I will send it out to the email that you registered with, and then it will also be available on YouTube, both Stana and then I believe World Taste and Smell as well. So you can find this conversation again, share it with other people, share it with those in your life that you think it could benefit. Whether you can smell or not smell, I feel like a lot of these tips were really helpful and really useful, especially the describing smells without using smell words. That's a
Yeah.
challenge that I give to all of you perfumers out there. Try to do that and see how it goes, and that would be really cool on like product descriptions. That would resonate with me a lot better. So thank you again to everyone. Happy National Sense of Smell Day, which was Saturday. And we look forward to just connecting with you and chatting with you again in the future. Thank you all so much for coming today.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you all.